Welcome and thank you for choosing to participate in this free course. This is going to be a great learning opportunity for you to get experience in a lab virtualized environment with the Linux command line. So if Linux is something that is really interesting to you, this is definitely the course for you, where it's broken down very simply without overloading the user. So in the next video, we are going to discuss how exactly you go about creating your virtualized lab environment so that you can go on and get those experiences with Linux. Welcome to building your virtual lab using VMware. So what we're first going to talk about is what is virtualization. Virtualization, I like to think of it as running a computer within a computer, which is exactly what we're going to be doing. So the way we're going to set up our virtual lab is by navigating to the internet, and we're going to search for VMware Workstation Player. Once you do that, you can go ahead and click this right here and then download for free. And so this should not cost you anything. You can get the pro version, but I highly recommend you just go with the free for the purpose of what we're doing. So go ahead and click that, download it, and then additionally, you'll want to look up Ubuntu ISO and download Ubuntu Desktop. So this is going to allow us to get this version of Ubuntu, so that's what's going to be ran in our lab environment. So go ahead and download that. And I have actually taken time to download both. You won't have to do anything with the Ubuntu ISO yet. With the VMware Workstation Player, just click through it, click Next, accept the standard installation. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the VMware Workstation Player. And I have my ISO on my desktop right here. So what I'm going to do first to set up our environment, and I'll close those tabs, is I am going to click on create a new virtual machine, and I'm going to click browse, and I'm going to find wherever that installation of the Ubuntu desktop ISO is, this one right here. So I'm going there, next, full name, I'm just going to put Alex, and then username, I'm putting Alex as well, password, I'm going to be using Tor, T-O-O-R, just to keep it simple. Virtual machine name, you can keep it as that or change it to whatever you'd like. Click next. The amount of gigabytes used, I'm going to keep it at 20 because I know I have dispensable space for that. You can play with that. I would recommend you just go with whatever the default requirement is. So we'll click next on that. And we will finish that up. So now it's going to start creating your virtual machine for you. So this will be a process of us waiting through a lot of installation and waiting for prompts. And so I'm going to cut and snip the parts together so that you can just see what is relevant for you. Okay, so I speak that language. That's exactly what I'm going to accept. So continue. Normal installation, just leave what's checked off and click continue again. When you get to this part, go ahead and click on the erase disk and install Ubuntu and install now. And write the changes to the disk. Go ahead and click continue. I'm going to select New York. That's exactly correct. Name, this is where I'm going to put Alex. Where it says your computer's name, this is talking about the host name of the machine. So you can make that whatever you want. Alex virtual machine in my case is fine. And the username I'm going to keep as Alex. Password, I'm just going to use Tor. And I'm going to select login automatically for making this easier for me. Continue. Okay, so installation is complete. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and click restart now. Okay, excellent. So it's all good to go. So what I'm going to do now that this stuff popped up is go ahead and click skip, next, next, next again, done. And then you can resize that. And in the next video, we're going to discuss introducing the Ubuntu operating system. Introducing the Ubuntu operating system, we'll notice right away the one similarity is the graphic user interface. And we're greeted with this purple home screen, everything. We have one folder on the desktop and it says home. So remember that. If we look on the left taskbar, left sidebar, we see Firefox, Thunderbird Mail, a mail application if you want to use it, Files, and we'll go ahead and click on Files. And before I do, I want to tell you, Files and the home thing on the desktop are exactly the same. They do the same thing. So if we click Files, it opens up right away with desktop, documents, downloads, music, pictures, etc. So all these folders, these are home directory files, okay? If we scroll down, we notice trash is there, so that's kind of like a recycling bin alternative, and that would also be present on the left sidebar as well. If we go to other locations, we're seeing immediately computer, 8.5 gig out of 20.4 available, so that kind of gives you an idea of the space that you have on your computer. And that's also the Ubuntu file system. So if you're interested in knowing everything about the file system and knowing what those folders are, what's inside, we will talk a little bit about it, but I encourage you to check the resources of this video for an explanation. So we'll close that. If we look on the sidebar, we'll notice LibreOffice Writer. So this is a Microsoft Word alternative. We're noticing Ubuntu Software Center. So this is kind of like a place where you can download and install software, kind of like how Microsoft Windows has that same kind of function in their operating system. There's a little help symbol here, so if you click that, you can find some general information. And ignoring the rest, we go all the way down the left and we see this little blocky 9 square thing. Click that, and that shows some system applications that are going to have useful tools we'll discuss later in the course. And there's 2 pages that we can flip through. And in the top right corner, you'll notice when we click that, it has system volume here. And it says wired connected, Bluetooth on or off, balanced, which is referencing power settings, settings in general. And you can also find that in the show applications area. And if we go back to that, we see lock, so we can lock our screen from there, and power off and log out. So that is introducing the Ubuntu operating system. In the next video, we're going to continue talking about some elements to that. Now we're introducing the command line with Linux. This is where people usually see it as a daunting task or as something to intimidate them, but this will become something that we become very familiar with in this course. So the first thing we can do is open a terminal, and there's a couple ways we can do this. First, we can do Control-Alt-T, and that should spawn a terminal. And another way to do it is right-click the desktop and click Open in Terminal, and one pops up again. The third way is to go to the Applications menu and click on Terminal, which should be in the near center screen. Since we already have some open, it just directed me back to it, but you can have as many terminals as you want open, so there's no restriction on that. So I'll pull my terminal into the center of the screen. I'll make it a little bit bigger, and I'm going to click on making this a little larger so we can see it better. Okay, so what's notable here? We see Alex at Commodore. So this is a shell prompt. This is what appears when a shell is ready to accept input. So we can type anything into the command line and press enter, such as just like spam, enter, and it says command not found. Command history, this is important. If we click the up arrow, we notice I get my recent entry back. If I click down, it disappears. So if I click up and I go left and I go right, let's say I backspace this, this is where I'm typing. We can edit entries in the command line by going left, going right. We can make it disappear by going down. So this is ways to manipulate the history of commands. Now, closing a shell is as simple as typing exit or clicking the X at the top right window, or you could also click Control D to close your shell. So this is just to introduce exactly what we're looking at. And in the following videos, we're going to get deeper into how we actually use this. So we're back and we're at our command line. Something I want to start talking about is the file system. So what I'm going to do this is go to File Explorer on the left, click on that, pull that to the center screen, go to other locations, and we'll notice where computer is. Right after the 20.4 gigabyte available, we see a slash, okay? So the file system in Linux in the command line is actually represented with a slash. So that's very important. And if we click on computer, we see all the stuff in the file system. The resources of this video or the other one is going to have the list of what all of those things are and what they mean. So this is very important. So I'm going to put this on the left over here because this is slash our file system. And I'm going to do something, and you're not going to know what this means. I'm just proving it to you for a point. So cd/ls, okay? So we notice something changed here immediately, and we don't need to know everything yet, but the blue sign, little symbol there, changed to a slash. So this means I'm actually in that directory, the file system, and it's represented by a blue slash. So the color blue is how we reference a folder or directory in the command line, okay? And folder and directory are interchangeable. So this is just to show you what the file system looks like in the file explorer and what it looks like in the command line. Now I'm going to type the clear command, but that's just something we want to immediately introduce. For now, we're going to go back to the basics. So Alex is the user in the command line. At is just where it's saying at Commodore is at host name of the computer. So the computer name basically. So Alex, I'm the user Alex, at the name that we changed in the settings earlier. So that's all that means. And the colon is just a separator, okay? The blue component, anything that's in there, is a directory. That's where our file path is. It's what our file path is representing as. And the $sign is a shell sign. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to do this real quick. Clear. So it was like this before. It had this tilde, this little wavy symbol. So that represents our home directory. And that's where you're probably going to be when you open the terminal. So remember that. The shell sign is signifying we can type anything afterward. Now, if the shell sign was a hashtag, that would mean we actually have super user root privilege, okay? So you'll notice in the course that when we do other things such as logging into accounts, at some point it will change to a hashtag. Just keep in mind that is what that means. And the shell sign is normal, and anything after the shell sign is what we type here. Okay, so in the next video we're going to get further into command line, and I encourage you check out the file system documentation so you get an idea of what all these folders are, because it's a good thing to know. Okay, so the first commands that we're going to start using in the command line are pwd and clear. So pwd stands for print working directory. Now we know from the last video what the stuff in green is. My user account at my host name, and between the colon and the $sign, the shell sign, we have the little wave, the tilde. So that signifies the file path, which is also in this case our home directory. So if we type in pwd and we press enter, it sends us back /home/Alex. So this is where I'm located. I'm in the home folder, and inside of the home folder is the Alex folder, okay? So that is how we use pwd, and that's what it means. It's printing out the full file path, which is represented in blue here, and the home directory of the user that we're logged in as happens to be the tilde, okay? So if a different user account location you were in a different home directory, it would show /home/Alex in the blue there, but because I own this account, it's showing the little wave, the tilde. So we've typed a command in, and what we want to do now is talk about the clear command. So the clear command does, as you'd expect, it clears the terminal and it cleans up the workspace. So these are two commands that you may find yourself using very often. You will very often use clear. pwd, you may use it if you want to copy and paste that file path somewhere, okay? In the next video, we are going to use the history command and get an idea of what that does. Okay, this is a super short video, but it's very important that we make it easy for it to find for you guys. So what we're going to be talking about is the history command. So this is an interesting one, and it actually can be used, for instance, if you're remote logged into another machine or logged into another user, or if you're enumerating learning about the environment that you're currently in, and also finding out what you've done for actions. So if we type history into the command line and press enter, we notice that our user account did all of these things. So this shows us everything we did, and this is all the stuff I entered. So that is as simple as the history command is, and it's useful to find out what's been typed on your machine before. So the command that we're going to be talking about next is the cd command, and that stands for change directory. You'll find very quickly that a lot of the commands in Linux are shorthand for words that are easy to remember. So this one is going to be used extremely frequently, almost every single time you use Linux, and actually it's shared with the Windows operating system and the CMD application, the command line. So what we'll do now is type cd, and notice in the blue I have /home already. I want to make this a point. So when we enter cd, at least for my terminal, because you haven't moved yet, it's going to do something. So if I click enter, it has a / now. And if I do pwd, print working directory, it says I'm in home Alex. So that's probably where you are. You're probably in your user account home directory. I did something before just to show you, if you type cd, it brings you automatically back to the wave, the tilde, which represents your home directory. Now, if I do a command we haven't talked about yet, and I type cd desktop, notice it has a tilde with a / and desktop. Now the / there does not at all mean that that is the file system. It's just used as a separator. The / up here in the blue happens to mean that is the file system. How about I go back? So let's do cd ... So that's how you would do going backward in the command line. So cd ... when you're building your file path and adding to it and it's getting bigger and longer, you do cd ... to subtract from it. So if you do cd desktop and you do pwd, you'll notice it built on the file path, right? Home Alex desktop. So experiment with this and play with it. It's going to make sense what file paths are and how they build on each other and how you take away from them. It just takes time, practice, and exposure. But this is a simple concept. So if we do cd ... again, it takes us back. pwd. Notice that subtraction. There's no more desktop right there. So this is how the cd command works. And if we do cd ... again, it brings us to /home. Ignore that ls command for now. We'll talk about it very soon. But pwd, we got rid of Alex as well. And notice this / here. So this / here is actually the file system. So if I do cd ... again, we get right back to that output that we were at before in the beginning. So take a look at the cd command, start using it, practice with it, use cd, cd ... and see what happens. When you do ls, that's the list command. We're going to have a video for that, but use that as well. Just type ls in your terminal, see what happens. It prints the contents of a directory out. So in the next video, we're going to talk about getting help with command usage, and then we'll get to the ls command. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about command usage and understanding how we can get help with that and understand how to use new commands. So we're going to take one we understand well now, so cd, and then we're going to type -- help. You'll notice right away it prints out a crazy amount of stuff to the screen. So let's resize that terminal, drag that out, and now we can see all of it. So it tells you change the shell working directory, change the current directory to dir. So it gives you options with it, and it tells you how to use it. So you can do this with any command. So you could type in pwd -- help, and it's going to give you information too. So I'm going to clear that. And you can also do cd-h, and that says that's an invalid option. Typically -h and -help or -help are all valid options and contenders for you to use with commands to see what their command usage is. The final way we can do this is, let's clear, man cd, enter. So there's no manual entry for that, so man ls. So I typed man ls, you can type man pwd or man anything else, right? And it gives me a big list of everything you can do with this command. Quite excessive, out of the scope of what we need to do, but understanding that man page, this command man, stands for manual page. When you use the man command, it is giving you a manual for that command. Extremely helpful, and knowing man pages is great. If you want to exit out of this, if you get stuck in it, just click Q. It says Q for quit at the bottom, and you're good to go. So those are some ways you can get help with command usage. And in the next video, we're going to be talking about what the ls command is, so we can get that clearly defined. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about the ls command. The ls command, ls stands for list. This is a very, very convenient command that you're going to use all the time when you're in the terminal to list the contents of your current working directory. So if I type pwd, we know this is /home Alex. We know that this blue part here, the file path, represents our home directory, so that's the same thing. Let's see if there's anything inside of this directory. And remember, directory and folder are the same thing. It's just named differently, it's just referenced differently in Linux. So ls. We notice immediately desktop, downloads, documents, music, pictures, all these things. And I want to make a point here. I'm going to put that over there. This home folder on the desktop, it's the same thing. So it says home right here, and desktop, documents, it's all the same stuff. So this is our home folder, this is our home directory, same thing, except we have it in the terminal now. And that's home Alex, right? So that's our file path. Let's say we wanted to list more information. So we can do an ls space -a, enter, and we notice there's things that pop up that weren't there before. So this you're also going to see as well, and the dot that's in front of these files. So notice right away, white is a file, okay? Dark blue is a directory. So notice the dot. All the ones with the dots pop up now, and when I did ls, no files or folders with dots popped up. This is because naming a file or directory with a dot actually makes it hidden. So the ls-a lists all files and all hidden files. Now we have another way we can list as well, and this is a more intelligent way to list, a more visually aesthetic way to list, and it gives us much more information. So I'm going to clear that terminal, ls space -la. This will also list hidden files. Enter, and notice we have hidden files, so we have all the files and folders with the dots. And now we have date of creation, okay? The name of the user owner of the file or folder and the group owner of the file or folder. So the user owner is on the left in those columns. So if I'm going to select this one, this is the file owner, the user owner. This is the group owner, okay? And all this stuff on the left that looks totally illegible actually happens to be file permissions and such. And in the next video, we're going to discuss that. But this is what you get when you do an ls-la. You get hidden files, hidden folders. It lists everything inside of the working directory we're in, which is our home folder. And it's listed in a way where we can see all the information very well, with date of creation and who owns it and what group owns it as well. So that's pretty cool. So what we're going to do now is show you how you can specify a location to list as well. So you could do ls space /etc/cron for instance, and press enter, let's add this little star at the end of it. Now that's a wildcard, and a wildcard references everything. Okay, so since it's attached to the cron part, it's gonna list out everything with the name cron inside of this folder, and this is just referencing folders inside of it. So if I press enter, now it got a bit messy, so don't get confused, but notice everything under here is listed, and it lists all these directories named cron. So this is another way, if we have some intelligence, some information as to what we want to list specifically, how we can do a lot of it, okay? And notice these green items here, okay? Now all these are default, so these are fine. But all these green items are actually executable binaries or files, however you want to call them, either or acceptable. But green means executable, okay? So this is how we use the ls command with the -a option and the -la option, and how we use a wildcard at the end specifying a target file path. So play around with this now that you have the resources for cd and ls and pwd. You can move around the file system, right? And you're not going to damage anything or do anything crazy. So go practice some, and then in the next video we're going to discuss file permissions. Okay, so now we're going to understand file permissions. So let's type clear ls-la, and we have that information right back at us. So file permissions are in the left area here always, and they all look a little different, and that's okay. So let's first start with what the first letter means, the D, and what this means, this dash here, because you'll notice they all start with a dash or they all start with a D. So D stands for directory, and notice all the ones that start with a D happen to be blue. Okay, so that's how we also know that is true. And all the ones that are white start with a dash, and a dash means it is a file. So that is the first thing you need to understand with file permissions. So this is how we can begin to understand what we're looking at. Now, if we look at what we have here, we'll take this top one. It says RWX and then R-X and then triple dash. So this is one segment, this is another segment, and this is the third segment, okay? So RWX. Now each part of this is just RWX, RWX, RWX. It can either have an RWX there in each little part, or it can be lacking, and that's where the dashes are. So the first one says read, write, execute. So the R is read, the W is write, and the X is execute. Now notice this one says R-X. So that would mean read, no write, execute, and then this one is no read, write, or execute. So why is it so repetitive? The first section here is, do we have read, write, and execute permissions for this folder here, which is default and doesn't do anything or mean anything? Do we have read, write, execute permission for the owner of a file here, or the folder, whatever it is? Do we have that permission for the creator of it? That happens to be me. Yes, we do. The next one, R-X, this is for the group owner. So I have read, no write, and execute permission on that. And the last one is for all other user accounts. So if I had a user account named Eric on this machine, then Eric would be not allowed to read, write, or execute to that file or folder because it's all just blank dashes. So this is how we understand file permissions, and I would listen to this video as many times as it takes you to understand it, and go through each part and see what you can do to build that foundation of memory with it. It does take some time, but in the next video we will move on to some more interesting items with the command line. Okay, so what we're going to be doing now is looking over the commands touch and how to make hidden files. So what is the touch command? The touch command is used to create text files, okay? So if we type touch and then we type whatever we want to name it, so we'll name it my file, enter, and then we type ls, we'll notice inside of the directory that we're in, right, pwd, that's where we are, inside of our directory we created my file. So it's white because it's a file, and these are our surrounding folders, right? lsla, we can see who created it, when it was created, information such as that, right? So I'm going to type clear here. Now I'm going to do touch space dot my hidden file ls. So we listed the contents of our working directory. We notice we see my file, but we don't see the dot my hidden file. So ls space dash a, we're going to just get the bare minimum hidden file information. And then we see, where is it? Okay, dot my hidden file. Okay, so this is how we create a file with a touch command, and we add a period before the file name to make a hidden file. So this is how you start making files. So now we're going to talk about how we create directories and as well hidden directories. So if we do ls in our current working directory of home, we notice that we have our file from last time that we used the touch command to make, and we do ls-a, we notice our hidden file with the period is here. So I'm going to clear that, and the way we make a directory is with the mkdir command. So mkdir stands for make directory, and then after we specify mkdir, we can type the name of whatever we want the file to be, or sorry, the folder directory, right? So my directory, enter, ls, list. And now my directory is listed with all the other files and folders inside of this location. Now what we're going to do now is make directory dot my hidden directory, ls, and now we notice when we do ls-a, we find our hidden directory. Okay, so that is how you make files, folders that are both either hidden or not. Okay, so now in this section, what we're going to start with is the file command. So an example usage of the file command would be specifying file and then the target. So the target is going to be something like, if we do ls, any of these could be targets for a command. Now we know desktop, downloads, all the blue are directories, right? We know that already. But maybe we didn't, right? So any of these objects that pop up in the command line, let's say we didn't know what one was. A good example of this could be the white file. Now we know it's a text file. However, you could have files that have different attributes on them and different properties on it. So maybe that file isn't exactly the standard text file, but in fact it could be something else. So an example, file and then music, and it says music is a directory. Second example, file, my file, and it says my file empty. Now if we did add to that file, which we will talk about in the next video, it would say something else. But one thing I want to touch on that I forgot to mention, if we type any command such as file, and then we type, for my instance here with what I have on my screen, my, and then I press tab, well, let's do my f, and I'll explain what this was in a second. So file and then my f, right? So I have almost all of this typed, and I press tab, it auto completes it. Now this is a way of making it super fast as to writing and editing things in the Linux command line, and I highly recommend you take use of it. Go ahead and try typing file and then specify something. Now if you have competing environment variables, such as I typed my and there was my directory and my file, it's like, hey, which one do you want to use? But I want to use my file, so if I type my f, well, there's no f in my directory. So that is how we use the auto completion in addition to the file command. So what we're going to discuss now is one of the two text editors that we're going to discuss. This one is called the Nano text editor. So this is my preference. However, the one we'll discuss later happens to have a use case where I prefer it too. So in order to use Nano, I want to just clarify. You are using the arrow keys, okay? So we're not clicking on the screen and then we're going to be able to type somewhere like in Microsoft Word. We do have to rely on the arrow keys to go up, down, side to side, okay? So just remember that. So we're going to type nano and then new file. So nano specifies I want to use this text editor. This is the command. And then new file is whatever I want to name the file. So if I click enter, excellent. So it says GNU Nano 6.2. So nano and then the version. Cool. So now we can start typing in here. So this is an example of me typing in my text editor. Now I can click around and it blinks here, so nothing changes, right? And I can click enter and I can go down and I can move up and down. I can type, move left to right. So that's all you get in Nano. If I want to save this file, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the options down below, right down here. So the most important one for you if you want to save your file is Control X, and it says do you want to save this, right? So that's what it means by modified buffer, and I do want to save that, so I'll click Y. Then it says file name to write. Now you already specified it. It's asking you again, do you want to keep it or change the name? I'm going to keep it, so I'll click enter. And now let's do an ls, and we notice new files there, right? So we can do file, new file, and notice how that changed. So that actually specifies ASCII text. And file, my file, empty, right? So we did in fact make a file where we added something, and this is an example of with a text file, what kind of information we'd pull using the file command. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Okay, so in this video, we are going to look at the Gedit text editor. Now, we don't have that by default, so we're gonna have to download it, and this is actually gonna introduce multiple concepts in one video. I apologize for that, so pay attention, and I'm gonna try and paste it with you guys. So if I click in the terminal and I type clear, clean up my workspace, in order to acquire this text editor, we're going to have to type this command, apt-get install gedit. Now, if you enter this, it's not going to work. So if you click enter, it says permission denied, are you root? Now root is the overall arching user account on the computer. Think of like NT authority of Windows if you're familiar with that, with what that means. But if you're not, it's the biggest user on the system with the most admin privileges. So the way we solve this is we use sudo. And sudo stands for super user do, and it's a way of authorizing commands with administrative privileges temporarily without having to be the overarching admin account. So we would type sudo apt-get space install gedit. And notice sudo admin authorization has a space here, apt-get space here, install, and then a space here. So typically if you want to install anything by the command line, you're going to do this, apt-get install, and depending on what user account you are, you're using sudo or you're not. Okay, so if you're the root user, no sudo, you're good. If you're not the root user though, you are going to be using sudo. Okay, and it's going to give you that prompt and remind you. So we want to do sudo authorize the action of installing the Gedit software, and I'm going to press enter. Alright, so now it should begin to pull the packages. It should begin to download that software. Hopefully it doesn't stall like it is too long. So okay, it asks password for Alex. Now this is a learning opportunity too. T-O-O-R, Tor. It didn't type anything, so it looks. So I press enter, it works. Now why did that work? Oh, I guess it is installed. Perfect. Well, now you know that, but the reason why the password didn't show is because it prevents someone from standing right behind me and looking at my screen and seeing how many characters are in my password. Like how long is it, right? It doesn't prevent, the shoulder surfing aspect of they can look at my keyboard and see what I'm doing, but it's a security feature. And it's quite a good one. So just remember, Linux is case sensitive with passwords, so if that ever happens to you, Now you know why. So now that I know it's installed, I'm going to type clear. And then to use gedit, the text editor, you type gedit, and then you make a file name, okay? So I'm going to make my other file, enter. And now I'll pull it over here, and we notice save right here at the top right area, and it has 1. If I click space, it numbers each line. So this is really actually convenient. It tells you what you're doing, so maybe this is a good text editor if you want that function. We can type in there, this is an example. This is more text, more. And the reason I typed so much is because, look, you can click around and start to change things. In Nano, and you can still do this here, but it's probably not practical. In Nano, right, you can do that as well. So now we can just click save and then exit with that little X at the corner, type ls, and we notice my other file is right there. So we introduced a couple concepts here. We introduced sudo, which is super user do for admin authentication, temporary access to that. We introduced shoulder surfing, right? How there's a feature for that in Linux that prevents people from seeing what you're typing, and how to install software. So I hope you learned a lot in this video. In the next one, we're going to cover some other concepts. Okay, so we talked about installing software, and we did that with sudo apt-get install, okay? And we were using gedit, so we know how to do that now. So how do we remove things from the command line? Well, we can do it the same way. So apt-get remove, and then gedit. Now it doesn't work, and I did this on purpose because I want you to see that we need authorization for these type of actions. So sudo apt-get, and instead of install, it's remove. Gedit. An interesting thing you can combine with these commands too is -y, and that's automatically going to say yes to something. Okay, so apt-get remove gedit, enter, and now we wait, and it might ask for a password. I just have to wait for that part. Excellent, no password. So it says, do you want to continue? Yes or no? YN, right? So I'm going to say no, and it says abort. So that is an example of how you could remove software or install it if you want to use the install function in Linux. Okay, so now we've been learning some interesting things, and what we're going to be doing now is learning how to print the contents of files to the terminal so we don't have to open text editors with it anymore. So if we do ls, we can do it this way, nano, and then my file. We know nothing's in there. Nano, new file. We see exactly what's in there, and we knew we typed something in there. So now we can do this, cat, new file, and this is one of the commands we're going to cover. So cat new file, enter. So cat prints the contents of the screen directly to the terminal, and it prints the entire file. This is a bad thing to do if you know for a fact the file is huge, okay? And you're going to be scrolling through it, so maybe you don't want to do that. There's a command for you here, head new file. Now, this is not a long file at all, so this doesn't really work in this case, but we can use a different file for it. But what head is supposed to do is it prints like the first 10 lines of a file. So if we do head my other file, we notice it sends this. And if we do cat my other file, we notice it prints everything. And there was stuff that we missed, such as spaces, like blank spaces here, and more. That didn't appear with head because head was printing out the top part of it. And cat printed out everything, so we could compare and see. So if we type clear, we can look at the less command now. So ls. So less my other file, enter. This prints out the file in a way where you can kind of scroll through it. And if you don't want to do that, or if you want to get out of it now that you're in it because it won't let you do anything and it's going to make a beeping noise basically, just press Q and it'll exit out of it, okay? Another thing is more my other file, and that is another way of printing it out as well. And Sometimes that'll allow you to press enter through pages. Another way, and this lets you do the opposite of head, the command tail lets you print out the last 10 lines of a file. So head prints out the top, tail prints out the bottom part of a file, cat prints out all of it, more lets you shift through it, less also lets you do similar things, and tail, my other file, only printed out the spaces. See, so that's a weird one, weird example. So head, my other file, and that prints out that. So it only prints out the last 10 lines, so keep that in mind, okay? But these are ways where you can print information to the screen, and you typically want to do this if you encounter files that you want to read without having to type nano or jedit or whatever, right? So go ahead and with files you make, go and cat them, print the contents to the screen, use more, use head, use tail, use less, and see how it goes. In this video, we're going to cover the command grep, and we're going to explain what pipes are in commands. Now, grep is a really cool command because it lets us kind of like locate exactly what is within a file if we know what's in it, right? So it could be we know a certain word or phrase or string, which is like a sentence or something, right? We know that it exists in a file, or we want to see if it exists in a file, right? So I'm going to show you something. So cat my other file, we print it out to the screen and we see this is what's in it. So I know the word more is in here, more is in here twice, text is in here, whatever. So we know what's in there now. Let's say I didn't know the word more was in that file. So something you could do is grep, and let me just do ls because I don't remember the name of the file. Grep more my other file. So the syntax, which means the command structure for how to use it, is grep is the command. In quotations, this is the string. That's what I want to search for. The target is my other file, and I press enter. And it pulls out, this is more text, right? So it pulls out the word more from the file. Another way we could do a certain scenario like this is if we combine it with pipes. And this is a little bit of a different way to do things, but when I say pipe, I'm talking about the character on the keyboard that looks like that. I just put a bunch in the command line, and that's right above the enter key. So a way we could do this is combine commands using pipes. So pipes act as separators. It's kind of like command 1 goes, and the output of command 1 goes into command 2, and it's separated by a pipe. So I'll show you an example. Cat space /etc /passwd. We'll talk about exactly what this file is later. All right, so I'm just happening to specify this one. Pipe grep root, enter, and it pulls out the line with the phrases of the word root in the file. And this is a way of compromising, sensitive information as well, perhaps. So this is how you use pipes with grep. So go ahead and do exactly what I did. You could even search for your username. If you press up, you don't have to retype it. So like mine is Alex, and I could search to see if Alex exists in the Etsy password file. And this file has all the usernames of the accounts on the system, so that's why this information is pulling up. And we're going to talk in depth about what this is later, but go ahead and practice with grep, make a text file, see what you can do, such as adding words in there, and then use grep and in quotations, a string of whatever word you want to look for, and then the file name. And give that a try, because that's something that's going to be on a bunch of certification exams relevant to Linux, and it's also used all the time in the field. So in the next video, we're going to talk about file redirections and how we use the echo command. Okay, so in this video, we're going to cover the echo command, and we're going to explain what file redirection is. So this is what we'll do. We'll type echo, and what this command is going to do is it's going to echo exactly what is in quotations to the terminal. So it's kind of like, if you think of what an echo is, it's you say something, you hear it back, right? So we'll type echo, this is an echo in quotations, and then we press enter, and it kind of just repeats it, right? So this is a great way to print information to the terminal, and if you're familiar with a programming language or whatever, this is very much kind of like a print statement, kind of like hello world. So how is this useful to us? Well, let's say we're scripting something and we want to put a way for users to get information to the screen. This is a good way to do that. Another thing we could use this for is we type ls and we'll make another file in doing what we're about to do. We can use echo to put a string in a file, right? So if we do echo and then this is what is going in the file, and then we use this operator, the symbol for greater than less than, to point to the right, what it's going to do is it's going to put, and we specify a file name here, the new, or just the newest file. It's going to put all of that text into the file. So let's go ahead and do that. Enter ls. So now we have the newest file. And if we use some of our knowledge from the last video or so, cat the newest file, and then it says this is what is in the file. If you wanted to add more to that file, then I'm pretty sure you could do this. More text, and then 2 of those directionals into that file, and then enter, and then cat the newest file, and then it adds it to the next line. Now watch this. I want to make this very clear because you can destroy data if you're not paying attention. So we know when we do echo with a string and one of those symbols, it creates a file and it also adds data to the file. When we do 2 of them, it doesn't make a new file. It just adds to the next line in the file, right? So we're adding more information to it. If we do it again and we do echo the new info with 1 directional to the newest file, watch this, cat the newest file. It overwrites everything, okay? So you have to be careful with this. So think about how you could use that, adding more information to the end of a file, appending a file, right? But we don't want to destroy and overwrite data. And it's going to be very hard to recover that if you do make that mistake. So think about how that's useful. Practice with that, make some files and do it. It's a cool exercise. And we'll talk about more things in the next section. The next command we're going to talk about is the cp command. This command stands for copy. So the way we would copy files in the Linux command line would be, first we're going to do ls and figure out what exactly we're looking at. And we would do cp, and then let's do my file, and then we're going to put a new name for the copied file. So we're going to name it copied. So looking at this, it's cp, so copy space my file. This is what we want to copy. And then the new version, the new copied file, is going to be named copied. So we do ls, we will notice copied is right here, and there's nothing in my file anyway, right? So if we were to cat it, copied has nothing. If we were to do cp the newest file and then copied to ls cat copied to, it copies it identically. So that is how we copy files in Linux. Now we're going to talk about the mv command, and mv stands for move. So if we type ls, and you'll notice I did get rid of a couple files, but it's cleaner this way. Copied and copied to. To use the move command, we would type mv space copied to whatever we want to move, and then we can look at the blue options here like desktop, and when we press enter, you'll notice that copied to is gone. So something we can do, instead of going into the directory like this, right, cd desktop ls, we could actually do ls desktop, and it shows inside of desktop there is only copied to. That is how you move files in Linux. next action we're going to be committing on our list is renaming files in the command line. So we can start doing this by typing ls, and then let's go ahead and cd into our desktop where we had that other file there that we moved. And we're going to actually use the move command to rename something. It seems a bit odd, but the way we would do this is mv space copied to, and then we just rename it. We just specify the next name for it, because it doesn't make sense for a file to go into a file, but this is the way we would do it. So mv copied to renamed, enter, and then ls, and renamed is now what copied to used to be. So that is how you would rename a file in the Linux command line. Now we are going to learn how to remove files and directories, otherwise known as folders. So what we would do is, let's move out of the desktop and back to our home directory, and we notice that we have my directory that we left from before, and we also have the copied file. The way we would remove a file would be as simple as rm, which stands for remove, and then copied. Enter ls, ls-a, to prove you I'm not hiding it. We'll notice the file is now gone. I'm going to clear that. Now if we want to remove a directory, watch this, rm and then my directory. It's not going to let you remove it because it is a directory. Now the way we remediate that is one of two ways. You can type rm-dir, standing for remove directory, or you can do rm-r. Now they're both going to accomplish the same task, but you have a choice as to either or. So I'm going to do rm-r, my directory. If I do ls, ls-a, you'll notice I have my hidden directory still, but my directory is now deleted. So that is how you remove files and directories in Linux. Congratulations, and thank you for choosing to participate in this free Linux command line basics course. This is actually a preview of the other course I teach, Linux Systems Administration and Security. So if you've liked the course so far and you want to actually expand more on those learning opportunities with Linux, I highly encourage you check that out. I have hundreds and hundreds of students currently actively participating in that course, learning a lot from it. I can tell you right now there is an added value that is demonstrated with cybersecurity analysts, people who are interested in ethical hacking, and people who are developers who want to get into a better integrated development environment. So if any of those things are on your plate, go out and check my course and go add me on LinkedIn as well. And if you're interested in asking me for a discount, hey, we got rolling deals all the time. But feel free to go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn or send me a message on Udemy, and I'll reach back to you with a discount too. So thank you for participating. I hope you enjoyed, and please leave your feedback in the comments. Thanks.